Hi, this is Jack Stanley, and I wanted to do a last and final bit on the 1960s in some memories of things that I have, being a very much a participant of the 1960s. As I said, I'm a child of the 1950s, and I saw an awful lot in the 1960s, and I've talked about a number of things, but I have more I'd like to share with you. Things that you don't usually hear about in histories because it's from a more personal standpoint. And I always found that's a wonderful way to learn history is to talk to people and think of things and hear about things that took place at the time. First thing I want to talk about is telephones, and I want to talk about long distance. Making a long distance phone call was an exciting thing in those days. You did it with the operator's help. And one of the great things to do to save money was if you had to make a trip or if you had to go somewhere or do something and you wanted to let everybody know you were okay, you would pick up the phone at the area you were at. You would contact the operator. They all seemed to talk the same way, like, number, please. That was a very unique sound. And you would tell them that you wanted to make a person-to-person call, long distance, and reverse the charges. And the operator would tell you to hold on, and they would contact the individual you wanted to get, and they would say that blah, blah, blah is calling, and they want to reverse the charges. And they would say, we will not accept those charges. And the operator would come back to you and say, I'm very sorry, sir, you could not make the call. They will not accept the charges. But that's all well and good. The whole idea behind this was to basically let them know that you were okay. It was brilliant. And we all did it, and I think it was done in the 50s and the 60s and 70s. Another thing in the 1960s that I found rather fascinating was that candy. Candy cost 6 cents. A candy bar, a Hershey bar, was just 6 cents. And every store you went to, you'd save your 6 cents and buy a candy bar. Also, in most stores, there would be an entire aisle of penny candies. And the thing is about penny candies is that with bubble gum, sour balls, and you had wax candies, which you don't have anymore because they thought they were unhealthy. They had harmonicas made of wax. You could play them, then you would chew them and then spit out the wax. We don't have anything like that at all anymore. But that was in the 60s. But think about that. 6 cents for a candy bar. Another thing that's very important at the time was this was the age of the Cold War. We who were the post World War II generation saw some very, very unique things. I mean, you have to understand that every day there was the thought that there might be a nuclear attack. And it was kind of driven into you all the time in advertising, in television, in commercials, and in school. And I remember in school we used to have nuclear bomb drills. Now, let me explain this to you, because if you think about it and you look at it rationally, it was kind of silly. But what we would do is there would be the attack, which would be the siren blowing. And then, of course, we would orderly walk to our lockers. We would open our lockers, and then we'd stick our head in our lockers. And this was to protect us. Now, the only problem was, what about the rest of us? The rest of our body was sticking out of the locker. But that's what we did. And thank goodness that never came to fruition, ever. It's still something that scares me, growing up in that age. And I look at things today, and it's, I think, even scarier than it was then. Other things that were going on, we had the blackout of 1966, which was interesting. I remember listening to the radio, it was WNEW in 1966, and they were discussing the blackout, and they were working on batteries, and reception was really bad. But there was a big population boost in 1967, I will tell you that. Another thing, also, speaking of broadcasting, is television. I think we had 5 channels, and of course, news was like a half an hour and stuff like that. Uh, One other thing is that, of course, you use rabbit ears on your television, and almost everyone just had black and white television. I mean, color was an extravagance that very few people ever were able to afford. And one of the things is, of course, you use rabbit ears or you had an antenna on your roof, and at a certain point, television would be going off the air. I mean, you reach midnight, and all of a sudden they would play the Star Spangled Banner, and you'd see the flag, and then all of a sudden you'd see a pattern, and it was just like, ooh, and that's all you'd hear, and that's when you knew that everything was over and done with. They didn't broadcast 24 hours. By the time you reached like midnight, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning, it was all over. And it wouldn't come on again until like 5 a.m. And so television went dead at night. And speaking of television, one of the amazing things, if you did travel, if you had a chance to travel, you might stay in a motel. And the advertising for motels, they would have these big signs saying air conditioning. Ooh. And also they'd say color television. Ooh. And that was exciting to actually see a color television. I know today it seems so hard for people to understand how exciting that was, but it was exciting. Another thing that happened in the 60s that's very important that we don't think of too much is our money system changed drastically, especially coinage. In 1964 was the last year in which we had basically silver coinage. Now, our silver dollars, which the last were minted like in the 1930s, but I used to see silver dollars all over the place. Used to find them, like when I was a kid, they would have contests and they would hide silver dollars under something and you would win the silver dollars. Silver dollars were worth $1. It wasn't much more than that. They were peace dollars, as they called them. Half dollars were in the beginning of the 60s Franklin's. After that, up to 1964 were Kennedy half dollars. And then they went to like 40% silver or whatever. But quarters and dimes were silver, 90% silver. And then in 1965, they dropped silver completely. And they went to copper and nickel. Now, we kids were far more interested in seeing the copper-filled coins because they were kind of cool. And so we were always getting rid of the silver coins to get the nickel and copper coins, which today I think how stupid that was, but at the time they were unique and different, and you'd always look at a pile of coins and you'd always go for the ones with the copper center. Well, I wish I could go back in time 50 years and then grab all of those silver ones and hold on to them because they're the ones that are worth the money. The ones with the copper inside are worth basically what they were. But the 1960s was an amazing age. So much was going on. There was so much change. There were so many assassinations, so many riots, so many racial problems, so many problems with society in general. There were marches. There were youth uprisings, there were college riots, there were colleges taken over by students, there were shootings at Kent State, there was all kinds of stuff going on. And it was an extremely problematic time that was surrounded by amazing innovation, amazing creation. And it influenced the baby boomer generation. I mean, there's a lot of baby boomers, and of course, um, I am very much a baby boomer and very much influenced by my upbringing in the 1960s. So I wanted to share some more of this stuff with you to give you a little window into that period of time. I know I haven't talked about lots of other things that I should think of, but I'm not thinking of them now. But I think this is enough for now. Thank you.